What's up, everybody who's ever listening back at home? We got a new guest with us today. Dave, who we got here with us?
We got Dustin with us, podcast host from Nowhere to Go But Up. Sean, what's good, brother?
What's happening, man? I love the intro, man. That's my music. That's what I used to listen to back in the day, man.
My man. Oh gosh. So,
Awesome.
man, I found you, Dustin, from the Ripple Effect podcast. The guy you were in there with the con, which I just started at that 2 days ago. I'm on the first episode. I got in there from I forget what the streaming website is, but went in there and rented it for I think it was 14 days or something. Paid the $20. I recommend it to everybody. It's about the 2008 financial crisis, and this one actually names names. It's not like that one. Rhino, what was that one that we were talking about?
For which one?
The Big Short.
The Big Short. Yep.
The movie, The Big Short.
Yeah. This one was real good so far, and I'm only in that first episode where the older woman there ends up committing suicide over that. But yeah, that was a real good episode there. And then I've been listening to, I listened to one there. You interviewed another podcast host as well, and then your very first one, which we were laughing about there. And I had to run downstairs real quick. But, I kept checking my phone and go ding. I heard it in the background. Good episode though. So where are you from, Sean?
I'm Northern California, so San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay,
Right.
Good.
You were from Nevada.
I thought you were from Nevada. You used to be though, right? Las Vegas?
I lived in Vegas for 6 years. That's where I ended up going to prison from. But I was I've been in the Bay Area, then I went to Sacramento for 6 years, then Vegas, then Phoenix, then back to Vegas, then to prison, and then to the Bay Area.
So you got one hell of a story then, huh?
Well, don't we all?
A lot going on.
All of us do.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Before we get into all those details, Sean, how did you? Let's talk about your podcast for a little bit. Give light on yours. So when did you start it, and when do you usually run your episodes? Is it an everyday thing for you at this point, or?
Well, the show's called Nowhere to Go But Up, and it was based off of kind of my story and wanting to tell my story, but not kind of knowing how. And so I figured I would start out like I did. When I started this podcast, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know anything. I just had this idea, this vision, and I watched YouTube and learned a little bit there, and bought way more stuff than I need. Don't even use half the stuff that I even bought now. It just sits in an empty box or a box over here, staring at me, going, "Hey, when are you going to use me?"
Right.
And so it's been about it'll be 2 years in May, and I'm at 115. I think I just released 114, I just live streamed 114 last night, and so I've got another 40 something in the queue, and that's a whole nother story, how that happened. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to tell stories from other people, and that have gone through bottoms and life struggles in their life, and how they got through it, and just trying to help other people realize that, hey man, we all go through shit. Can I cuss on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes the best way to get through something is by hearing it from other people. Not always does it work that way, but a lot of times I've found that, when I hear something from somebody else and I'm struggling with it myself, it gives me that seed, right? That seed that drops, oh, okay, that's a different way to go through something. And then maybe the next time when I'm struggling with it, I'll remember that seed and be able to move through that a little bit quicker than I would have originally if I hadn't done that. But I don't know, maybe that's just kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
And so it's been amazing. Honestly, it's been amazing. Well, actually, the amazing part about it was Corona. and the lockdowns, because up to that point, and the Ripple Effect podcast, that's a great one. Ricky, he does what he does, man, and still maintains the job that he has, because he's in construction as well. That's what I'm in the trades, and when I'm working, I've got 14 hours that's committed to, 8 hours being there, and the rest is, either getting up and getting there and getting back in the commute, right?
Yeah.
And so I struggled for the first, I'd say 30 episodes, because there was a hiatus in between of like a couple months where I started doing really well, picking up good numbers, and then I had to go back to work and it all fell off, and so did the listenership. So I had to start back from scratch again, and it happened one more time, and then I was able to really hone in on what I wanted to do, and the message that I was creating, and what my brand is, when the lockdown came. And like, I switched up my whole guest booking process, kind of automated that, because I was having issues with, losing guests because of the whole, especially the time zone thing, trying to figure out, oh, what's your time zone? Oh, what's your time zone? Okay, well, I think it's this. And, they get one time and I would get another time, and then we miss the connection. And sometimes you don't get another chance to get that connection back, because they may think that you're like, oh, what a hokey ass show. This guy's can't even, figure out what the difference is between, Canada and California or whatever, and so I changed it up, and it worked really well, because I put it out there on Facebook in the groups, and I was like, hey, if you're X, Y, and Z and you want to get on the show, here's the booking thing. Here's my booking tab, and go for it. And before I knew it, the 2 days that I was scheduled was Thursdays and Fridays, and I had put like an hour in between for lunch, but just slotted it for like a regular work day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for the first 6 weeks, I was booked out, literally 16 episodes in 2 days, like 16 recordings in 2 days for 6
weeks. A lot.
And so I loved that it happened that way, because it really gave me that exercising that muscle of learning how to interview, right? And learning how to listen, and learning how to do all of that stuff, and get comfortable. That's really where I found my personality started coming through the microphone, because up to that point it was always kind of a little reserved. And I could tell that I wasn't 100% like being myself. And I don't know. I wouldn't suggest doing it, because once you build up that pile of content,
there's a lot of chance for disappointment too, by not being able to get everybody on, or by leaving people, setting yourself up for failure almost.
Exactly. And all of that has happened. I feel guilty, because damn, these people gave me their time. They poured their guts out to me, and here I am just holding on to their thing. And a lot of people, this was so new. Still, even though this has been like around for 20 years, 15, 20 years, it still has that new car smell to people, and they were like excited, right? Oh, I'm going to be on my first podcast, and like all of that. And I remember what that was. And the first time I was ever on somebody's show, and it was exciting, and it was like kind of cool to say that, hey man, check me out. And, so yeah, there's all that involved in that. So needless to say, this is the fun part of what we do, right? This thing right here. This is like what keeps me coming back every time. Now, when I have to start editing something, or, that's not the fun part for me. I don't like that part. It's way too time consuming, especially if you're a perfectionist, oh, I got to get that, oh shit, get in there and just start. Before you know it, I've edited out 100 ums and everything else, and it just 4 hours later, it's just not, that part's not fun to me at all.
Absolutely, I can feel that. The one thing I when with Dave and I, when we've talked about getting this going, and I do kind of wish we would have started a little bit sooner, because we had a lot of, especially during like COVID lockdowns, we were completely locked down here in PA. Very similar. I mean, both governors are very similar on their ideologies, but what I kind of told Dave, I don't really want us to do any editing. As far as if they're rough and they're rough on the edges, hey, it's a learning experience for us. I don't know. I've listened to other podcasts, and I know I don't want it to be too. I didn't want it to be too scripted.
Yeah,
But I don't know. Everybody else has viewpoints on it differently. So, what was your main point of going back into wanting to edit them, or is it just that's your type of personality?
Honestly, it was more of like there'd be a couple of things that I would say in the beginning that, like, oh, I don't want that, because I was running for a business agent position in my union, and so I was really heavily involved on the union side of what I was doing. And you know how that goes, man. When it comes to elections and people using stuff against you, and those, I mean, it's super political.
Mhm.
It gave me that feeling, like, kind of like, God, this is horrible, man. I just didn't like it. I didn't like the cutthroatedness of it. And like, people were attacking me for, not a lot on the podcast, but just like for like stupid stuff. And it's like, I mean, you know, it left a bad taste in my mouth. So I would go in and I would edit some things out if I said something that wasn't, wasn't, that didn't put the union in a good light, or like talk shit about them.
Mhm.
So I would, at that time it's when I lost. So I had to go back in, and, I was kind of butthurt, man, when I lost that, and the way that it happened, especially since I dedicated so much time and energy, and, my, a lot of it was time. Right.
Yeah,
And
poured your heart and soul into it.
yeah. And so I had to go through and remove some of that stuff. And finally I got to a point where I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to change this whole thing around, because this editing thing is just really driving me nuts. And so I turned it into a live stream. And the live stream allows me to, like, I can do all of the beginning intro stuff right from where I'm at. I use StreamYard as well. So
Good.
I use it almost as if it was like a virtual roadcaster, because I load up those presets with my intro, my outro. Sometimes I'll what I do too is I'll even replay one of my episodes that I hadn't put up to YouTube yet. Instead of just directly going there, I'll just replay it as a live stream, just to get it to the locations that I need it to, so I can get more views out of it, and then go up to the podcast platforms. But it really just allowed me to really pre-plan what I'm going to say, and almost make sure that I don't really say a whole lot of stuff that I don't mean, right.
Mhm.
in a live format. So it
It
kind
can
of,
happen. It can definitely happen.
yeah, it can. And, I've had to go back on, on episode 100. I went through, and it was a 99 episode review, right? And I had to explain number 3. I had to explain number 7. Number 3, I was angry, and I was talking about online dating, and I'd just gotten screwed over by some chick. I think I went on a date, and, didn't look like what she said she looked like. And, it just, all these things were like, it was just a bad day to record.
Little catfish
I,
in action.
I should have just did a hard pass on that day when I thought about recording, right?
That's funny. I think that's all happened though a lot, especially now with I know it's definitely happened to me with the online dating.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting to go on a date. So no, I mean, you can definitely relate. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that could relate to that. So
Oh yeah, you should listen to it, man. I mean, I go into it. I'm
He's-
like, I go, man, you ladies, man, you got, shame on you with your angles and all that other shit you use to hide the fact that you're overweight.
Was this before catfishing was a thing?
No. This is way after that. I actually like that show.
Hey,
Episode 3, yeah. Oh, that's funny. You were talking about how your own so-called brothers were turning on you in the union, right? I was in I was in the painters union, painter, drywall and wallpaper here in Pittsburgh. We're both from Pittsburgh. Family was all in that business side of it.
Mhm.
I forget what, one balanced the books or whatever. And I went to a lot of the meetings and stuff, but it's funny how your own brothers will turn on you and try to bring up this old dirt and, and just to win an election. Is that
Well,
what you're running for? Your business
agent, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
business agent. Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, I don't want to down the kind of people that are, in those roles, right? Not the business agent, but the blue collar worker.
Mhm.
But the reality of it is sometimes there's people that choose to be there. A lot of the times it's people that have no choice. That was it. For me, that was my past really determined whether that I went there, because my past didn't matter there. Like I could still make 100,000+ a year and be a felon, right?
Mhm.
And so you've got other sort of blue collar. I wouldn't say that they're not educated, but they're not. Um, there's just a difference, right? There's just a huge difference between them, and I don't want to make it sound like like I'm being like a classist or anything like that. It's just I just didn't like the feel of it, man. Honestly, I didn't like the fact that I had to. There's one thing that they always used to say is like, well, you got to learn how to play the game, and I'm like, well, this is not a game to me. All right, this
Mhm.
is where I come to for my living and to survive. This is not a game, and I don't want to have to come to work knowing that I'm playing a game. I just want to come to work, do my job, make my money, and go home.
mm-hmm.
And every time I would turn around, I get stabbed in the back in some way, shape, or form, whether it was on a job that I did, and I may have touched ground on that job once and then moved on, and then something would go bad, and someone would blame it on me, and it would be like, because I'm not there anymore.
Mhm.
And it's like there was always that, and it bothered me enough to the point where, like, I've been lucky. So the last year I've been on disability, and I just finally got my arm operated on, and I've
You
been
want to talk
able
about
to,
that real quick?
yeah.
What happened to your arm?
So from the trades, a lot of usage, a lot of stuff that we do has to do with movements this way. So like duct wrap and pipe covering.
Which
So when
one are
you
you in, Sean?
I'm heat and frost insulators. So
Okay.
basically, commercial construction, all of the ducting and the piping, having to do with mechanical insulation. So like heating hot water pipes, duct wrap, chilled water lines, and and we get into stuff in the refineries as well too. But it's repetitive motion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as I think I was up on a 40-foot column on a refinery, and they were shimmying up stainless steel paneling to wrap around a tank,
Mhm.
and my arm. I'm like 20 feet up, and as I was going, my arm gave out, and I almost lost the whole thing and dropped it on about 20 people below me. And if that would have happened, that would have been a huge problem. And so I went to go get it looked at, and that was about a month before the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it did hit, I'd already been to the doctor, and we were like, I didn't know if I wanted to pull the trigger at that point when I went. And so as soon as it happened, I emailed him, like, hey man, it's a good time for me to jump on that disability and take a break. And I was lucky enough and was able to do it. And so unfortunately with Kaiser that we have out here, they like, this surgery should have happened 6 months ago, but they don't do it that way. They make you go get a cortisone shot and do all this stuff and do all these other things
Make it
before they
work.
Yeah, they do all these things before they'll say, okay, now you can have surgery. So I've got 2 more payments left, because temporary disability is actually what that is, temporarily. And you only get it for a year in California. And then you have to either determine whether or not if you're going to be permanently disabled, which even if this arm didn't work anymore, they're going to tell you, no, you got another one. Don't worry. You can do something else. So there's no way that I could get permanent disability on it. So my impending doom is coming, right? Which means I'm going to have to get back on the out of work list, file for unemployment, and wait to get sent back out to go somewhere. So I don't know what's going to happen in a month. Hopefully, I've been doing a lot of things to try to pivot out of it. I started a nonprofit organization. I got 501c3 status now. I'm telling you, man, this podcast has really opened up a lot of doors for me and into what I'm, helping my community, which is formerly incarcerated, and folks that are coming back from incarceration and entering the community and my own community. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are in the hopper right now, things that are working, but it's a time thing, man. It's like, I feel like I've got this thing, this little pendulum tick, 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 tick in my head going, God damn, I got it. All right, let's go. I mean, I've literally been putting in 14 hours a day at my little space here, creating and trying to figure out a way to pivot out of construction permanently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was going to say, man, just listening to you speak, I ended up getting out of it myself and moving into a real estate background and sales. And I can hear it from you talking that you got the, it's in your blood, the talking, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
priceless.
Yeah. It's, I don't know, man. It's made things a lot different for me, man. I mean, I don't know. I think a lot from the background that I came from and, some of the choices that I've made in my life, I'm not going to say that it hindered me at all, but it's always in the back of my mind that I'm not good enough to do certain things, right? Because of things that I've gone through and, having been a certain way.
Yeah.
But
little haunting. Well, almost
yeah,
like haunting an image back there. I know. I feel it. I have.
We just talked about this in the last podcast, Rhino.
Yeah, Dave and I just talked to. We had one of our good friends that's going to become a doctor. He was actually on, and I wish we would have talked more with him, not to reflect on things, but just to go real quick. I wish we would have talked more about him, about the way that the healthcare system is set up right now, and just how much of a problem it is. Because he wanted to talk about that, but we ran on pretty long, but about what people are experiencing right now. I mean, how long you have to wait to get surgeries, the processes that you have to go through, all of this shit is causing people to not want to go to the doctors. And that's why that's why we're starting to see so many problems just within our healthcare system. It's a fucking mess at the moment. But yeah, we were talking, I have kind of a similar background. I'd like to hear what yours is, but we talked last episode about me. Now I wasn't very, it was still pretty serious, but I got, they had pending charges of 2 felonies that were being held against me. I actually ended up taking a plea deal, so I did not get the felonies, but I got M3s. So but yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. I can relate to that feeling where you don't think that you're good enough for something, whether it's, oh, I don't want to talk to this girl, but then there's this hanging over my shoulder. Or are they going to find out about that? Do I need to talk about that the very first time I meet them? Or just there's a whole bunch of things. You can go down a laundry list of things where you constantly, even though you get past that point and you break through and you might become, you're on the path of being successful, that little bit, that chip is like still kind of on the shoulder, that it constantly still kind of haunts you every now and then. Even though you want to try and forget it, it's very hard to. It's almost impossible. It's just something that you got to live with, and just like I mentioned, is constantly proving that I'm not that person. Is what I said. Every day I go about it, I just prove, hey, I'm not that person anymore. That was years ago. And look at the success and look at the constant wins that I've been stacking, one on top of the other, to prove that person no longer isn't. It was almost like a fluke incident.
Yeah. No, it's very true. It always, it's always there.
Mhm.
It's one of those things. Like, I think the best way to kind of describe it is, so take being overweight, right? For as an example, I struggle with weight constantly. I love to eat garbage, but it even when you lose the weight, everything that happened to you because of the weight doesn't go away. So you're still a skinny guy. You're still a skinny guy with all of the ramifications mentally of that condition, right? And that's what happens, when like for 18 years I was in and out of institutions, been to 18 different ones, from jails, boys ranches, to prison, rehabs. I was addicted to meth for 18 years, almost died 5 times because of my usage, whether it was overdoses, vehicular stuff, to, the last time I got arrested, not the last time, but the time when I got raided for the first felony for trafficking a controlled substance. I was probably about this close to dying. I had a gun in my hand, and luckily I looked around the corner. There was a big ass TV in front of me, and the door was kind of blocking it. And I saw the SWAT shields, and immediately I ditched the gun behind the TV and dove. Had they seen that, bye bye, no more me.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff like that I'd gone through. And when I decided to change my life, which was in 2010, I got out in 2006. And I don't know if anybody can ever relate to this, but I mean, I wasn't done. There were still things on my resume that I wanted to do. And all it took was the 2008 financial crisis to give me the time to go get into more trouble and get into methamphetamine again and start using again. And I AWOL'd from my marriage for 3 months, just literally gone, and hanging out, doing crime, learning how to do the things that I wanted to learn how to do. At some point, I think I had 2 violations after 2006. One was a 90-day treatment center, which I, bullshitted my way through that. And then there was a 90-day trip to the county jail. And that was the one that did it, honestly, because I knew I was going to be going somewhere. And when you go to a county jail, it's not as it's a little more dangerous, in my opinion, than prison, because
That's where I was at, actually. I was at a county jail for 90 days.
yeah, there's
A lot of people, when you try and tell people that line that you just said, it's a little bit more dangerous, nobody believes you. They don't believe you, but it can be fucking crazy in there.
Well, there's no politics there. And the politics that they do have there are usually a skewed version of what prison is really like. Maybe because a lot of them sometimes never even made it to prison. The only time you see or talk to somebody that's been to prison is someone that's either coming through on a violation, or somebody that's coming out of a prison and, fighting a case. And so they got to bring them back through, the system. And then you're talking to your cellies, and you're telling them what prison's like. And then so maybe you got some Joe Yahoo who wants to be running the white car, and because that's where I fell in to the whites. And it was they have this, it's their idea of what prison is. And so they try to, make politics around that, because there are some mild politics there. But I mean, for the most part, it's just a bunch of yahoos in there trying to, make a name for themselves sometimes on the street and whatnot. So I just decided, hey, I'm not going to be kicking while I'm in prison, while I'm going through this process, because I'm going to feel vulnerable as it is. And I stopped a month ahead of time and then turned myself in. And then when I got out, I just kept it going. And I took myself away from all of the people that I was around, started playing adult slow pitch softball, started. And I've always been a leader. That's the thing. I've always been a leader. I just led people in the wrong direction, doing the wrong kind of shit. And so when I got out, I decided to, or when I got out and started playing softball, I was like, I don't like the way that this league is running. So I'm going to go do my own league. And so that was like the first thing. That was the first thing that I attempted to do, made a goal, completed it, got that good feeling from it, which is what you're supposed to learn when you're a kid, right? How to make goals, achieve them, get that confidence building from it, and then level up again from that. Because after that, I'm like, okay, well, now what can I do?
Mm-hmm.
And it just kept going, man. It just kept leapfrogging over the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. And, before I knew it, I was, an executive board member or sergeant at arms at my union, an executive board member I was a trustee, was on the rowing team for 5 years. So, I found connection and I found self-confidence within these things that I kept doing, and not using drugs to just dull the experience and kind of not even realize what it was that I was achieving. And B, it was, it was just that thing that I needed that I didn't know how to do. And so, fast forward, here I am. I don't know. I just kind of got off track there. Sometimes I do that.
It happens to all of us. Don't worry about it. We always got to bring it back full circle. So no, don't worry. I was listening. It was good information. Everything you're saying is so spot on. But I want to hint back real quick about whenever you said, and you changed it around before you went to county, and then we got kind of on a tangent about how the county was more, it's kind of a little bit more dangerous. What was it that was, in your opinion, or why you realized that, hey, you wanted to turn it around at that point?
It was a culmination of a lot of things. It had been years of disappointment. Not only disappointing myself, but disappointing my family, not being reliable. Like, nobody could count on me. I didn't have friends. Like, some people have friends that they had for years, right? For me, people just came and went. I was such a manipulative person that if, like, the only reason you would be in my life is if I could get something from you, or you were a stepping stone to another place I wanted to get. Whether it was, I want to hook up with this chick, and for that to happen, I need to, hang out with you. I'll bring you over and set up the stage, and you know what I mean. I was really cunning and really manipulative. And so I didn't keep people around. I discarded them as if they were, when I finished with what I needed them for, I would just move on to somebody else. And that's a really lonely place. I may not think that. And a lot of times I convinced myself that it was by design that I did that. But I was manipulating myself right there, because what I found out from having this podcast is connection is the most important thing. Connection to people, connection to causes, connection to the world, nature. We're all, in my opinion, I don't really subscribe to religion, but I definitely, my higher power is the universe and all of the energy that comes with it, because we all are energy at some point, and we're all connected to each other. So it was kind of realizing that, and also too, I'm in my early 30s, so I'm thinking, like, man, what am I going to do? I have no retirement. I have no, like, all the things, like adult things, like grown-up stuff that you got to start thinking about. Like, what am I going to, how am I going to, all right. So because I didn't think I was going to live, honestly. I thought I was going to die. And I was living my life in a way that, I didn't want to kill myself because I was too much of a coward to do that. So I was trying to party myself into the grave, and it didn't work out. And, for whatever reason, the 5 times that I tried, that I was supposed to die, didn't happen. And, I just sort of, all right, well, if I'm gonna be here, what do I got to do? Cause this wasn't working, this other way wasn't working. And, and that's only half of it, getting rid of the substances, because there was a whole bunch of other stuff that came after that of bad behavior that I still did because of, behavior. Jail doesn't cure behavior. It gives you time and distance away from stuff, but there's no way for you to work on behavioral stuff, right? And that's that shadow work, that subconscious stuff that's going in the background when we're moving through our lives, right? Whether it's, I would lie for no reason, to my significant other. These were habits. These are habits that were ingrained in reactions that were automatic that I didn't really have control over. I would do it, and then I go like, why did you just lie? You're not doing anything wrong. And then when I would get to the situation, and have to explain myself, I'd be like, and get caught in the lie. But then I would try to explain, well, and it was too late, right? It's like, all right, well, you already look like you're lying. And so it was just like a lot of stuff like that.
Mhm.
I just got tired of being the person that I was, and my family couldn't be proud of me for what I was doing. And, I'd had a daughter up to this point that I'd lost custody of, that was out there. She just turned 21. I mean, I haven't met her, so to say, since. I mean, I've talked to her on Instagram and that, but, and then having another one too. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter that I co-parent. And so that's when, like, trying to really change who I am in like the last 2 years when this podcast started was my behaviors. I was an abusive person, mentally, emotionally, not physically so much, but I mean, I was a bully, towards my relationships. And if you weren't going along with what I wanted, I would, then try to bully you to bend you to my will. And so those are these behaviors that, I didn't like about me. And so I started talking about them openly. And, in different episodes, if you follow along from the beginning, you'll see I start dropping little truths about myself, which puts it out there. And if I'm putting it out there and I'm talking about it, I'm healing from it.
Mhm.
And I'm also letting people know that about me. And so I'm not hiding from my behaviors anymore. So, I mean, that went a little deep. Sorry.
No, that's man, I could not relate to you any more than a lot of the things you just said. I know for the longest time I didn't really talk about a lot of my issues, a lot of things that I was dealing with. I know Dave knew a lot about it, really since from the beginning, because it was really just him and I down here in Pittsburgh. There wasn't really too many other people, or if there were other people, I didn't really care to associate with them. Maybe there were people that I knew of in high school, and I was hanging around doing stupid shit with those people.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I realized, like, hey, I have zero care in the world to see any of those people anymore. Even if I pass them, like, hey, I'll still kindly say hello to them, but I'm not going to be a dick and walk past them. But there's just nothing there. I know that there's nothing to gain there from a conversation, or just even hanging out or being around them. But as far as the healing process goes, yeah, once you start being able to actually talk about it, accept that reality that it is there, that's whenever I really was able to get a lot better from my experiences. So no, for sure. It's anybody that's gone through prison or anybody that's been in jail, there's a fundamental difference that it makes in you, that no matter if you don't experience it, you can't relate to it. Other people can't relate to those instances,
Yeah.
and what you experienced and how that's going to affect you moving forward, because it's just always there.
Yeah. It, I try not to let it define who I am. It's a feature of who I used to be, and it's something that I went through, but it's not who I am at the core.
Mhm.
And going through all of this, and looking back at it and being able to self-reflect and, not, I think the most important thing for me is not to have to apologize for anything the next day, right? Because of my behavior. And drinking always, when I drank too much, that wasn't my drug of choice, but that potential is always there within that substance. Because if I go too far, he comes out, and it's all like the Hulk. I mean, it's almost like the Hulk, right? It's like this person that I fucking can't stand. This comes out and like ruins shit. And so like I tell people that sometimes they're like, so what's it like to be an addict? And it's like being a fucking mogwai. To be honest with you, you got to be careful. You can't eat after midnight, can't get wet, can't do all these things, or else something bad's going to happen.
Yeah. Triggers.
And so it's figuring out all that stuff and then forgiving myself, for some of the bad things that I've done, or how I've treated people, or how I've mistreated people. And, so that just takes time. It takes time. And, a lot of it is erasing it with better deeds. Right. So trying to erase those misdeeds by doing good things for people.
What is, not to cut you off, I'm sorry if I did. You mentioned it briefly earlier that you were doing something with previous convicted felons. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So
I think it's an appropriate time to talk about it.
Yeah. So through the podcast, and I was interviewing somebody, and she started talking about how she started a nonprofit, and I was like, oh wow, I want to do that. And I'd been thinking about it. I just, with the podcast, I've also used it to get information. If I'm curious about something, I'll go and seek out somebody who has knowledge on it, bring them on the show, and then start getting information about how I can get into it, or if it's even something that I want to even approach or do, right? And so she said she had gotten I started asking her, and she's like, well, to be honest with you, I didn't do it myself. I had somebody help me. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And she's like, but she did it pro bono. So let me see if I can hook you up with her and have her help you. And so that process happened, and she did. She said yes. And she said, yeah, I'll do it for free. It was a lawyer doing all the paperwork for me, doing everything professionally, which would normally cost about $2,500 to $3,000 to have that done. Most of the time, you do not get approved for 501c3 status on your first time around. And it usually takes a long time. So within 8 months, I had been approved, and everything was good to go. And so I'm a procrastinator. And so I hadn't put anything together yet. I'm like, all right, well, it's going to take a while. So I at least got another 6 to 8 months to go before I even have to start messing with it. And it just got dropped in my lap. And so what I had originally wanted to start with was adult males, and creating a program for them when they come out, like have a mentorship, almost like a one-stop shop for everything that you need once you get out of incarceration, whether it's, rides to and from somewhere, whether it's, job placement assistance, because I'm in the trades. Like, how do you get into that? How do you navigate that when you don't have, the requirements to get into the trade itself, right? Because there's bars for people that they don't want in there, and they're there for a reason, because they don't want those people in there. And so you have, like ours was, you'd have to have a GED or a high school diploma, but you also have to have a passing grade in geometry or algebra. Well, how many convicts are going to have a passing grade in geometry or algebra? Not a whole lot. So, like, how do you go about getting that, and clearing that hurdle? Different, just all kinds of different stuff that you can do. So as going through doing my market research in my area, I started talking to probation managers, supervisors, other community-based organizations. And what I'd come up with is the need for my community specifically is transitional age youth 18 to 24. And so that's the group that I'm going for to help, because they haven't quite, there's still a chance that you can turn it around. You might have only been in one time, right? And so you haven't really ruined your life a whole lot at that point. And so, and you're still malleable to a certain extent, right? Because 27 is when,
the brain's not even formed yet. It's not even.
Yeah. And so that's where I'm going. It's going to be transition. It's going to be housing. It's going to be a whole program designed around what it takes to transition from that age to becoming an adult. Helping with jobs. I mean, I've talked to a ton of different coaches, life coaches, mentors, things like that. Those will all be available. Mental health counselors. But I really wanted to base it off of a therapeutic community model that I went and visited in Utah called the Other Side Academy. And I was invited up there after I had got the CEO on as a guest. So number 83, if you're interested, you can see the beginning part of that process. And so I ended up going up there and spending 3 days up there immersed in this program, eating with the clients in their groups. I saw how the whole program run. It's 100% self-funded. They don't get any money from the government, state, anything. It's all their social enterprises that fund this, but it doesn't cost the people that are there any money either, because they work in the social enterprises. So they're really paying for their stay. Mm. And so I really like that model. And so I just wanted to do something sort of similar to it here. And right now I'm at the process of putting my board of directors together and really starting to get involved in that part of it. And then also too, there's going to be an element of podcasting. Another thing that I'm doing is one of the community-based programs. It's called Bay Area Community Resources. I just landed a kind of like a partnership with them to teach podcasting to their students. And so we're going to come up with a curriculum. We're going to come up with a whole program designed to teach them how to do a podcast from beginning to end. And hopefully the star pupils that come out of that will then replace me, and then I can move on and do something else. Right. So, I mean, it really, I think that's a really great feature to have in anything that you're doing. So you start a program, you have the people that are going to be in the program and excel through it, because there will be some, and there'll be some people that don't. It's just the way life goes. That's the averages. It's the law of numbers. Mm-hmm. But retaining that talent because they've bought into the program and they bought into your system, and those are the best ones to continue the program on and continue to teach it and pay it forward to other folks. And so there'll be an aspect of that in the housing facility that I'm going to have, because there'll be a podcast that's tied to that specifically, and kind of, teaching them how to get guests and how to get their voice back, because that's what this podcast did for me. It gave me the ability to realize a life bigger than me, right? And the ability to go beyond borders and talk to people and really learn who I am and what I really wanted in life, through talking to other people.
Yeah, that is so cool. That's what we were actually just talking about. And Ryan was saying something, and I remember saying that we're too humble in a sense where we think we're too small to make a change. Mm-hmm. What are we doing here? We just put a microphone in front of us, a headset, and we have the World Wide Web. Or look how I found you. Just reaching out and in a soft. It was a cold invite, just saying, "Hey man, I heard you on this podcast. Are you willing to come on?" And like the ripple effect. That's so funny that that's how I heard you. Is like his thing. You throw a rock in a pond and it ripples out and goes out, and you can touch thousands, millions, hundreds of thousands of people by putting a microphone in front of you and talking. We don't have to sit around and we're like, well, who am I to go out and do that? How am I ever going to get to a Joe Rogan point where a million people are going to listen to it? Well, he didn't start having a 100,000 guests or anything like that?
It took him 10 years.
10 years, man.
It took him 10 years to finally, get those numbers where people were paying attention to him, and like now he's what he is, but he was the example, right? He was, because that's where I got my start from. Is I listened to Joe Rogan for 2 years straight, in the trades, earbuds in, 14 hours a day, just consuming content, consuming, just sucking up everything this dude had to say and everything that his guests had to say. And I was a fly on the wall of amazing conversations. Like I like, if I would have had this when I was a kid, man, who knows how the cards would have been, different, but they weren't. And this is what I have, and this is what I had to work with. And so I just, the impact that podcasts have had on my life is part of why I do what I do, because I want to be able to, for everybody to experience it the same way that I did. You don't have to be stuck where you're at. Where you are is where you've taken yourself, and, and if you can, like the thing that I like to say a lot is, if you can see it and dream it, you can be it. That's all it takes, man. If you can think it, then you can turn your reality into it. That's all it is, man. It's all mindset. And once you start realizing that it's all in your head, and all of my barriers were all put there by me. For the most part, nobody else is holding me down and like keeping me from doing anything. It's my own limitations that I've put on myself that are responsible for that. And so once you can break out of that and start realizing and changing the narrative in your own head, and start thinking bigger and better, and thinking outside of all of that, it's, the possibilities are endless. Ricky's amazing. He's the first guest that I had where like I was fanboy, right? And so I didn't let any of that out, though. I didn't get all fanboy on him when he came on the show. But I mean, it was the first kind of like, okay, well, I feel like I can, because we go through progressions in this, right? In the beginning, you're really insecure about what you're doing, but you want to do it, and you think maybe you're helping people, but you don't really kind of know until you get that first review and somebody says, "Hey, man, I heard your show and I can totally relate," or you get an email from somebody, because it's few and far between in the beginning. It's really non-existent. You're lucky if you do get anything. But it's the little glimpses of, oh, it's working, like that keeps you going. Yeah. And that was my attempt at trying to get somebody a little bit bigger onto the show. And I got him on, and and the reason why I kind of wanted to get him on is that Patrick, I was able to screen that movie, right? Their publicist reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think we'd like to have Patrick on your show to promote the movie."
How cool is that?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I was like, okay. And I started thinking about it, and it was right around the time that I had Ricky on the show, and I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, man, would you mind, you got a way bigger following than me, and this guy's story is way bigger than my audience. So would you interview him?" So I was really literally passing it off to him, because I thought that this story was so important that it needed to reach more people than I could. Right. And so he said, "Hey, you know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't we just do a swap cast, and I'll have you as a co-host, and then you can just release it on yours as well, and we can just kind of kill two birds with one stone." And so that's what happened. And from that, I ended up interviewing by myself after that two more of the producers, Eric Vaughn and Cindy Castro DeRusso. And that was kind of cool. But here's another great thing. Here's another story to tie this all the way around full circle. All right. With this specific connection that I made. 97, I had popped in on one of these groups that I normally do on Sundays, or I used to do. And it'd been a while since I've been on, and I just popped on out of nowhere. And there was a lady on there. Her name was Dr. Carmen Johnson, and she's from DC area, Baltimore. up near your guys' neck of the woods. And she had gone to prison for 3 years. And like, this woman has a PhD. She's a smart, intelligent Black woman, was helping people out of foreclosures during 2009 on the back end of this thing, when, the shit started hitting the fan and people were, the moratoriums were going away and people were starting to get kicked out of their homes. And she was really trying on the front lines, trying to save her community, from some of this. And she did, and she was having successes. She realized that these foreclosures were being done illegally. And somebody prominent I'm going to butcher the story, but if you go listen to 97, you can hear for yourself from her. But anyways, to make a long story short, her story fit on the back end of what the con was, right? And I knew that the con was getting ready to do a second series. They had enough content to do a second part of the first series. And so I go, hey, you know what I can do? Let me try something. Let me start beating the bush around Patrick, because I could call him directly, but I didn't want to just say, hey man, can you help out my friend? And so I started, pinging him on Twitter with different things from his show and kind of including her in on it and saying, hey, this kind of seems like what you went through, right, Dr. Carmen? And, she's got a great story, blah, 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 blah. And so one day the phone rang and it was Patrick, and he's like, hey man, you've been kind of pinging me on some stuff. What's this story? Like, what's this? What is it that you're trying to get me to look at? And I explained it to him, and he's like, great, well, give her my number and I want to talk to her. And so I guess from that, she ended up, he's going to put his investigator on her case and start, digging around that stuff. And then also he's probably going to have her on the documentary at some point as well, on the new one. And so that's going to help her tremendously get her story out there, because she was railroaded. She didn't want to go along with screwing people over, and they put her in prison for it, to shut her up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that's just kind of the power that you see that we have if like we use it in the right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to connect people to other people to, invoke change. I know we all can see what's happening in the world right now. And the stuff that's happening, I don't, to the point where if you think like Ricky or myself, they're trying to make us domestic terrorists for speaking out against authoritarianism. Right. And that's something that, I mean, I have to like tread a thin line because of the nonprofit and not wanting to turn people away from me that could be possible donors to the cause, because, people don't think that way. It should be about, if you're doing good things, your track record should be what you're held to, not your opinions on something, because my opinions are fluid, right? If I'm not sold on anything, if you can change my mind by telling me or presenting me with a better picture than I have in my own head, I will look at it and I'll examine it. And if it makes sense and I go and do some research and I go, oh, you know what? You're right. I'm wrong. Huh. Okay. That sucks. But well, here's my new reality. Right?
Yeah. Whenever people can enlighten you, taking it as enlightenment and not taking it as, people look at, just something that you're not known about or you're uneducated about. Hey, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong and explain why. And I, being able to learn from that and not push back. Because that can happen too, where a lot of people, they, even if they are wrong about an issue or a topic, that they get very defensive on it and they become angry towards it. And that can be something as well. So.
That's right. We have a conversation and two people disagree on it. They think it's like you're personally attacking them as a person. No, we're just having two different opinions. And you're absolutely right on that one.
And so that's really another thing that we need to, like, when we have the power to be the example of conversation and how how healthy conversation and healthy disagreement looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some of those on my show, and being in this position has not only has it made me a better speaker and a better interviewer, it's made me a better listener. Because before, I remember when I first started, I would always be like on the edge of my seat to get my point out, right? And when you're in that mode, you're not listening to what anybody's saying. You're more thinking about, well, how am I going to say what I want to say? And so I really would have to step back and take in what somebody else has said and then think about it and then not react, but respond. Because there's a huge difference between reacting and responding. You can react emotionally, or you can take a pause and respond intelligently.
100%. No, for sure. That's one of the things I know just from us starting out the podcast is I've had to just, and then also I think just being in sales, Dave and I are both in sales. A lot of times in sales, people think that you're out there selling. A lot of times I'm just planting questions and letting people talk to me and then relate with them, or, try and find a little bit of the common ground. And literally just let them talk a lot of times. And by doing that, I mean, that's where I noticed the difference in just my professional life as far as actual sales go.
Mm-hmm.
It increased drastically. At first, I was young because I got into car sales, Sean. So at first, like, that's how I got into car sales and was, wanting to try and prove myself, prove my knowledge, tell people about the car. A lot of times these people don't give a fuck about the car. They don't want to know what is this, so I had to take a seat back, because these are what, you got. They give you these classes. Hey, you got to teach this. This is what you need to learn. This is how it's done, blah, blah, blah. All that was kind of bullshit. And by the time that I actually ended up getting ready to leave car sales, they had me training all the new people coming in on how the process should go. If you're sitting there and you're blabbing out information, or you're on the edge of your seat trying to pressure the issue, it's not going to work. You got, and you're not going to be able to relate to your clientele or to your customers or to anybody that's across the table from you or somebody that you're interviewing or listening to.
Yeah, in sales, you got to build trust first before you can even think about pushing anything.
For sure.
That's our inside joke. Is I'm on the phone, and when Ryan wants me to get into the truck or something and get going to wherever we're going, he says, "You're going to talk yourself out of a deal. Get in the truck. Let's go."
I've seen it happen multiple times where people just talk themselves out of deals. A friend of mine used to do that. He would he was more of an associate because he's a lot older. He's closer to some of my brother's age, but he would sit there and just literally talk about stuff. And then by the end, they were, on the phone for, an hour and a half, 45 minutes, and nothing got accomplished. And the person's like, well, shit, I actually wanted to look at this house and we didn't even get to that. And then it's like, well, I would call him, but if I call him, I know that it's just going to be, we're just going to sit there and we're going to talk and talk and talk. And then people kind of get turned off by that. I've seen it happen multiple times where they have gone down that road. So there's a big difference between responding and actually listening,
Yeah.
Listen to it for sure.
Yeah, I love the fact that you found because that just you found me through the ripple effect, and that just really goes to show the power right there. When you hear something or you hear somebody that resonates with you, I think the best advice I could probably give somebody who's wanting to podcast or is actually in the game itself, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. And, some of the best way of finding your audience is going to the places where you're a fan of and finding your guests through shows that are similar. And cross-pollinating between that way with different shows and different stuff like that. Like, have you checked out the Union of the Unwanted?
I have. Yep.
I was on that one. I was on that once. I got on there one time.
Nice.
Yeah, which was
How long
pretty
ago
cool.
was that?
I'm gonna say probably a couple months ago.
It's only been going for what, 2 months?
No, it's been going for a little longer than that, but it was in the beginning. So yeah, I've had a ton of people from his show on my show, like Monica Perez, what's her name, Miriam Hanane from the documentary. What was it? The Vanishing of the Bees. Who else have I've had?
You say Vanishing of the Bees?
Yeah.
Is it talking about how bees are being wiped away right now?
Yeah. And so so if you go to number one, I think it's 110 or 109. In the description, the YouTube link to her video is in there.
Nice.
And so yeah, and also Truthzilla, I've been on their show. I've had Deborah Gets Red Pilled. I've been on their show. They've been on mine. I'm still waiting on Sam Tripoli. He's hard to nail down as a guest. But have you seen the documentary Everything's a Rich Man's Trick?
No, can you elaborate on Everything's a Rich Man's Trick for people listening? Is that what you everything?
Yeah. Yeah, it's from JFK to 9/11, and it's called Everything's a Rich Man's Trick. And Ricky had interviewed the director of that, I think, on 280. His name is Francis Richard Connolly, and I'm in talks with him right now too to get him on the show and to talk about that documentary. But it's the best depiction of the last 100 years wrapped up in 3.5 hours. Like it goes through everything. Like when I watched it, I was like, holy smokes. Like everything makes sense now. If you're watching this, as to where we're at, especially with the con's another one that once you kind of see the mechanisms by which they use us and how they, because everything is kind of inverted, right? And that's how I think they get us. Is it looks one way, but when you start digging into it, it's actually the opposite. So everything that you're looking at is like, oh no, if I look at the backside of it, that's what the truth is. This smoke and mirrors that they present in the front is really not what it is. And so that really gives a glimpse into how they do it. And I say they, and at some point, I don't know if people will ever wake up. I mean, we're 50-50 divided right now down in the country. There's 50% of us that watch mainstream media and, are tuned into the idiot box and the programming. And they call it programming for a reason, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're programming you with constant information and constantly being bombarded. Like remember when we went to war with Iraq
in 2002 or 4, or what was that? 2002.
Shock and awe. It was Senior, when Senior took us there, right? I think it was Bush Senior.
Oh, okay.
It was just every time you looked at the TV, it was just like these images of this, and it's just being thrown at you constantly. Like now, when I turn on stuff when we were in the middle of that pandemic, I was literally being traumatized, and I was like, damn, man, just turn it off, get it off of there, because I knew what they were doing. They repeat, and then if you go across all of the news channels and all of the news outlets, it's the same narrative, just repeat, and so they literally just beat it into you to where when somebody says something about it, it's like, bam, you're spitting off that narrative, and that's what you believe. And a lot of it is to the boomers, man. The boomers, if it's not on the TV, they don't believe it. My mom is a prime example of that. They for whatever reason, there's some sort of security in the fucking news, man.
Well, I think you got to go that we can't relate to that, because we that was during their era. That's how things got out. Was through news and that, and then I think at first it started out as a lot of good things, but then people realized the power that they harness behind it, especially media outlets, and corporations and realized, holy shit, look at how much power and how many minds we can get into. And then that's whenever you started to see the shift into more of like, you know, our generation. And now it's just a fucking mess with all the propaganda just across the board.
It's Edward Bernays.
What's that?
That's a good one for the viewers to listen to. I got it on that bookshelf behind me. Edward Bernays. He's the help me out there, Ryan. What was he? The founder of the propaganda. He wrote
the small book Propaganda.
Got women to smoke cigarettes and got people to buy diamonds. What do they call it? The PR guys, public relations guys. So they brought him in and said, "How can we sell this product?" And then they found out, oh, okay, so we can manipulate the mind and socially engineer them toward this. Well, how about we now sell them this fear? We create a problem, then we come in and pretend like we're the heroes and provide the solution, which is key on what everything is happening right now. I don't know why they waited 20 years. You know, they could have came in and swept us all up after 9/11, you know, but we bonded all together, came in together as one, you know, essentially rallied behind a war. We had somebody to blame it on. I think even Trump got into that sort of figuring out how to choose to, like, he, you know, China blamed everything on China that whole time. Well, we know there's a cabal, a new world order that's behind all of that, pushing that narrative to then come in and sweep up the rights with, you know, some sort of dragnet, which is similar to what, you know, we sit here and watch the news. And that is one thing that I like about podcasts too. I'm an Alex Jones News Wars guy. So, you know, that while I was in the union, that's what I was listening to for, you know, 18 to 25. So, you know, 6, 7, 8 years listening to that, and then listening to Michael Savage, Savage Nation. But these long form discussions where they're not little 15-minute, 30-second, 45-second segments, and then boom, on to the next one. You now get to see that people are a lot smarter, and they have the attention span. It is longer than you actually think. It's just you're programmed to have a 15-second or a 10-second window of, you can think of something and boom, next. And that's the problem with these cell phones. We're scrolling through 9/11. We're going through our you know, feeds, and we see a news. You
see that subliminal 9/11.
Yeah. I looked at my phone and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, he's right.
Yeah, but it's a crazy world we live in, and that's what I like about podcasts. And this is the same thing. You were in the union, you're sitting there working 8, 10, 12-hour days, and, you know, it's calming. Yeah, you can sit in your own head and listen to, you know, AC/DC, but man, you throw these headphones in and listen to some podcasts, because not everybody around you wants to hear, you know, AJ ranting and raving, you know, about today's politics and about the New World Order. But these long form discussions are really exciting stuff going on.
Well, and you get to when you see a conversation with somebody for an hour, you actually get a glimpse into their personality. You get a glimpse into if they're full of shit or not, because your bullshit meter pops up, you know, in 15 seconds or a 3-minute bite or segment. That's not enough time to form an opinion about anything of that person or their character. Right. You know, a lot of times, and I think that's the important part. And, you know, 9/11 was just they've all been kind of like testing. It's like they've been testing this whole time, seeing how far they can get, see how far they can push. They realized in 9/11 they could, and the 2008 financial crisis, how far they could steal. And, you know, the thing with the 2008 crisis is a lot of people were able to profit off of buying homes at a really low rate. The normal people, the regular people, right? The people that they don't want to be able to own stuff. They want all of it for themselves. And so this time when they did it, they locked everybody down. They made it to where nobody can talk to anybody else. So you can't have these ideas in parks. You can't have an idea in a restaurant. You can't, you know, connect with people in your community because everybody's afraid. And so they really isolated everyone, so they could not exchange information with each other and kind of like, hey man, this is weird, right? This doesn't make sense, right? Am I crazy, or am I seeing this right? Because that's what you would do. You would go to your neighbors, or you would go to your local watering hole and talk to people about, like, what's going on, and how does it feel to you? And that was the element that was missing in this one. And they got it down to parks. Like, you can't even take your kids to the park, right?
They removed the basketball hoop. They removed the nets from our fucking basketball hoops here. How crazy is that? I mean, being in California, they were putting sand in the skateboard parks. I mean, that's ridiculous. We ended up doing it, but it was at the very end.
Yeah.
They brought in a bunch of sand and did it to us here too. But I know, crazy. You can't even like enjoy just the common things of, you can't even go outside really. And if you do, if you're walking down the street without a mask, you're getting the people looking at you or, calling you out. It's just fucking crazy, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, look, I a lot of the times, just because of my temper and the fact that, I don't like people telling me what to do. And so for me, preventative measures are always something that are in my back pocket. And like, I don't agree with the masks, but I go along to get along, because if somebody says something to me in the wrong way at the wrong time, I'm gonna end up in trouble, especially if it's a dude. And so I just try to prevent that from happening. But everything that they told us to do was counter to what was good for us, right? Vitamin D naturally occurring in the sun, going out, being outside, breathing fresh air where, the virus doesn't live. All of the things, to even the measures of, taking vitamins, vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, quercetin, all these other things that we could be taking that would prevent us from and build up our immune system. They did the exact opposite. Putting those masks on, it tells you right on the side of the box that it doesn't prevent virus from that. It doesn't help with that. Right. But let's breathe in carbon dioxide. That's good for us. Right.
They don't work, because you need to wear 3 of them. You have to wear 3 of them now to be able to stop the virus.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one thing after another thing after another thing. I mean, at some point, like, I'm an addict, so I know about spinning lies, right? And what that looks like, and like the kind of crazy lies that come out of somebody who's trying to get their asses out of trouble. And to me, this feels a hell of a lot like like an addict trying to tell me or lie to me their way out of a situation, right? Like, there's so many coincidences that have happened through this pandemic. Like, in a lifetime, I would never even experience that many coincidences, but yet in a short period of time, we have everything that coincidentally kind of falls into place, right? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's always going to be the next virus, the next virus, the next virus.
And they're telling us now, like, oh, it's mutated, so now everybody's expecting to, now the lockdown thing is almost like normal now. Okay, well, yeah, we're probably going to end up being locked down again next whatever, or so when it does happen, nobody's up in arms about it. We're just kind of conditioned to it now, right?
Yeah, and now there's going to be so many different avenues. I mean, I can name 2 right now. I think, what are they saying now, that the Iran or somebody's going to start gearing up again? So now we're going to have that boogeyman over here. We already know right from the beginning of the speech from Biden that he's coming, and we can pretty much see bombs going off in and around us, and then they're going to get blamed on the Patriot movement, the Proud Boys, or whatever you want to call them, people like you just mentioned. And now you have a virus. So now it's going to be 3 different avenues, and it'd be like, okay, well, let's hit them on this one, let's hit them on this one, let's hit them on this one, and until they can fear. Let's come in, let's round these cats up. It's just
what's they got to
do about it? Well, look, man, we got microphones in front of us. What if we can talk to 5 people that talk to 10 people that talk to, you know what I mean? It's just,
well, right now, podcasting is the last frontier of free speech.
Yep.
because they're coming after that too. I guarantee you. They're going to be trying to tighten down on this portion of it as well. And another one too that they didn't really expect and is blowing the fuck up right now is Clubhouse. Are you guys on Clubhouse, familiar with it?
No, can you elaborate a little bit? I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah,
So Clubhouse is an audio only app, social media app. And you guys are probably a little bit young to know the days when they used to have the party lines on the phone. Remember at nighttime they would say, hey, call love lines or call love links.
I do remember that actually. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so this is the same thing, except it's a lot more curated, and it's you have control, and you can see who you're talking to, and you can see who the profiles of are the people that are in your room that you're talking in, and it's like you have people like Brett Weinstein, Lex Friedman, Eric Weinstein, Elon Musk has been on there, Joe Rogan even made an appearance on there once, and it's the wild west in there because you can't control what they're talking about, and it's all, you can't record it. So I mean, you can, I guess, if you had it playing and you had another device next to it recording the conversation, but I mean, as for trying to go in and record the conversation, because I have a room that I do every Friday, or not Friday, but Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. It's about podcasting and, question and answers and introing, meeting other podcasters, and I tried to record it and I couldn't. So because I was going to release it as an episode, so I was like, all right, you know what? Why waste the opportunity of collecting content? But yeah, it's iPhone only right now. So if you have an iPhone, you can get it, and it's invite only. So if you guys got an iPhone, I've got some invites. If you shoot me your phone number, I will invite you on there. But it's really a cool place to go and just listen to different ideas, different genres, different rooms. Like I went into, like, I'm a big proponent of plant-based medicine and psilocybin, and as a means of helping change behaviors. And so, like, I went in there one night, and because I want to do a deep dive, like a hero dose, because I've only played around with it. I've never really gone that deep because I've honestly been scared. I don't know what I'm going to find in there. And, I don't want to do it by myself either. I want somebody who will guide me through it, because if it ends up a bad trip, at least it's not gonna, I'll have someone be able to walk me through it.
right.
And so I went in there looking for somewhere in my own area, and I started talking about my situation and how I have some behaviors still that I don't like from my past and addiction and everything else. And like, bam, man, when I shut down that thing and finished that room, like 15 people had followed me, and two of them followed me over on Twitter. Another two followed me on Instagram. And that's how it works. So you go in there and you start talking, and people start resonating with what you're saying, and immediately they start following you. And it's a lot better than like being on Twitter or, trying to just within those apps, because people don't really know you, so it's a really great organic way of building a following through using that app.
How long you been on it, Sean?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, for a couple of months.
Okay, so help us out. So, because I did get an invite, and like I said, I've been on here for 2 weeks max. You're on the screen. How do you find the groups that you're interested in? You just go to the search bar and type in.
Well, no, I just go and I look at the rooms. So you go and you either, if the bigger rooms, a lot of the times you're not going to be able to talk. They're more like when they've got like 4,000 people in there. I mean, you're basically there because you want to listen to what they're saying. So I go in and I follow people like that I like. I follow Lex Friedman. I follow Eric.
Find the people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so as soon as they come into a room, you'll be notified, and it'll say, hey, so-and-so speaking in this room. And then you just tap that, it'll take you to that room. But to find rooms to talk in, or you can start your own room, right? So let's just say you guys wanted to talk about a certain topic, and you go in and you start a room and schedule it out, and then both of you would pop in there and you start talking about it, and people will enter your room, and if they like the conversation, they will stick around and listen, and you can invite them up to speak and share. Hey, you got something to say about this? Raise your hand. It's about moderating the room and learning about how to, conduct that whole thing. There's a learning curve to it, but it's really beneficial. And this is another one of those things that they didn't anticipate. So it's everybody's in there being able to talk freely, and nobody's being censored about anything. If people get out of hand, the moderators usually will remove those people from the room. But I thought it was going to be cheesy, and because I came from the world of the party line, and I'm like, yeah, this is just another one of those fucking party lines, man. This is going to be stupid. And it really changed my mind when I went in there and started looking at it myself. And I'm like, oh, you know what? This is going to be really valuable. So, I mean, there's still some hope, and I think that as long as we can cling to the fact that, the Constitution means something, and it was put there for a reason, and this was, this whole country was based on leaving a class system to begin with, right? And just sort of roundabout, when they talk about racism and all that other shit, man, there's no racism in this country. I mean, there may be a minuscule amount, but it's a class war. And it's all about class. It's about, the rich and the poor. That's all they want. They want rich and they want poor. They don't want the middle class. They don't want them. The middle class is the problem in their eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And pushing us all the middle class down into being poor peasants. And then they have a wealthy 0.0001% of the wealth up there that own everything. I don't like to get into, I got a lot of friends and family that are everything is the 1%er's problem, everything. But you do the math on a basic 1%. It's in Pennsylvania, it's 333,000. You know what I mean? It's somebody that makes 300 grand is not the problem. It is the big 13 at the top.
Well, it's not. So yeah, and a lot of that gets muddled up in people's emotions and everything else. But like the people that are running the country, it's the 16th of the percent of the 1%.
Exactly.
All right, so it's a little small sliver of the population that has more money than the 98% below them. And they're able to move markets, they're able to move economies, they're able to take money from here and put it over here to cause this to happen over here. And I mean, literally, it's if I had that kind of power, it would be like a game every day. Like, oh, what can I do to have a cause and effect here? If I do A, how can I produce B? And these people are working on timelines that we can't even fathom, right? Our goals are, it's an amazing if I can have a goal and achieve it in a year and stick to it. These people are working on 100-year timelines, 50-year timelines, and it spans families. It does in generations. It doesn't just stop when somebody dies. That somebody dies in that family, and the next one comes up and picks up the torch and keeps running with it.
Exactly. You wonder. You get into the David Icke. I'm not sure if he still thinks that they're lizards or what, but you got to wonder if you get these guys that are spraying aluminum dioxide in the sky, and they're jacking the food supply and the water supply with the GMO, the fluoride, all this stuff, that they are still getting it too. If they're spraying their skies, they can go down to their bunkers, and then what are they going to do? What are these people doing? You do have to wonder. And if you ever listen to David Icke, who knows if what he's saying might be true? Who would jack their own food supply? They can have their own gardens up in the castles, up in the hills, but when you start spraying the skies, they're taking that in themselves too. I get they want to tax us by the mile and tax us by the carbon dioxide that we breathe, but they're jacking their own supply. You got to wonder, guys are trying to jet off to another life form or something.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, a lot of this is, anybody listening, this is nothing proven. A lot of it is just,
It's very speculative.
yeah, it's speculative, and it's by like how it makes you feel, right? Like you see things. Like the one thing I think humans are really good at is uh patterns, picking up patterns. If you've been around long enough, and I think this is where they get us, because by the time you're in your 30s, like you're not even paying attention to any of that crap, right? It's like you're trying to figure out how to get out of being, you go to school, you do all this stuff, you go play sports, you go into college if that's your thing, or you go into the workforce. By the time you have your own family and start realizing that, oh, okay, I don't like this or I don't like that, you're well into your 40s. And what are you going to do about it? You're already stuck into the system. You're in the matrix. You're plugged in. You've got debt that you've got to keep rolling. You got to keep going and going to like I got to make at least 5,000 a month to keep my quality of life and going the way that I want it to. All right. So do I own anything? No, I own a shitload of debt. So I was telling somebody not too long ago, I said, I honestly think that the freest people in this world are the homeless. They're the ones that got it right, because they're not in the system. They're not having to plug away and be a part of that matrix system, and be a part of that debt slavery, you know. So obviously they're sacrificing a lot for that, but I mean, if you really just think about it, they're the ones that are the freest in our society, because they're not attached to that whole mechanism. One thing that I don't know if you guys are aware of this or if you know who this individual is, but one of the guys that I was in prison with and I used to walk the track with him nightly is Fritz Springmeier. And he's
podcast.
Yeah, and he's the one that wrote the book, The Bloodlines of the Illuminati.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really was into the occult and all of the religion. Like he did another book called The Watchtower Society. And so that was like my first introduction to like conspiracy stuff. And he told me about his whole story and how they, set him up because he was getting too close to something and trumped him up on a charge of bank robbery. And like I was kind of like, I didn't know if I believed all of that when he told me, but the more that I've been talking to people, it's like they use the federal the Bureau of Prisons as their deterrence, and that's where they lock your ass away. And once you get locked, you get in the Fed sites, you can't get out of them. They got way more money than you, and they will break you if you try to fight them.
They got endless money, not way more money. Their money is endless.
Yeah.
They just print more of it.
Yep.
Stops.
I like the image of there's a guy on a that's speaking on a podium, and then there's all these people on the edge, and all the people on the edge are standing on this side, and then that guy on the podium's out on the edge, and people just walk off of the board, and the guy sinks.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm seeing. I get what you're saying by the homeless people are free, but you know what else is free and liberating? When you don't have an employer, or you don't have these people in the back of your mind that you think are constantly judging you and want you to conform into their way. If you quit caring what other people think and you go your own way, you're going to attract those same type of people. And they might not even agree with you 100%, but they agree that you're speaking your truth or what you believe in, and they attract toward you, and you can make money that way. By look at, I forget what that big YouTuber just came out and sold images, PDFs of images, and made $3 million in one day. The guy that's a boxer now,
Jake Paul.
Jake Paul, yeah.
His brother.
Who's the brother? Either way, you images of stuff, and it just shows you that people are willing to buy stuff, and they're willing to donate, to help you get to your thing. What's $1? $1 and 1,000, 5,000 people to donate $1 to you every month is 5,000 for you to get by and live your life, which a lot of people, again, they're afraid to ask for $1. You know, and they don't want to put it at the end of their video. Just, hey, could I have $1? Could I have, you know, a like and share? You know what I mean? You get 5,000 people to give you 50 cents. It's 2,500.
Yeah, I actually just started doing that. Like, I just got to the point where I was able to hook up my Patreon to where it had tiers that made sense. Like, because for a long time it was just up there, you know, it was one of the things that I thought that I had to get, you know, so I just got one, and I didn't put a whole lot of time and effort into it. And now I'm starting to direct people there. And I think I started it. I started getting serious about it probably about a month ago, and I've gotten like 4 subscribers so far. It's like $20. I mean, but $20 is $20. I mean, that's one of my subscriptions, you know, for the StreamYard, you know, part of that. I've started adding a StreamYard link to the affiliate link in my stuff. So, you know, trying to drive people there that way. What else am I doing? I don't know. I haven't that's about it so far. I mean, I've had a lot of people just donate. Like, you know, I'd say, hey, look, man, if you want to leave me a tip, go ahead. There's my Venmo, my PayPal, you know, and I've gotten, you know, I've made at least probably $300 or $400 off of that, you know. Producing, you know, there's another thing, producing a podcast, you know, I know how to do that now. And so I offered, you know, I'm in Toastmasters. So I had made some connections there, and there was a guy from a real estate, a local real estate thing who wanted to start a podcast. And so I went and, you know, did a couple of episodes with him, and, you know, their funding fell through. But I mean, you don't have to necessarily have advertising. You can turn whatever it is that you know how to do into money. There's tons of people out there right now that are looking for editors. You know, in my area specifically, I know that San Francisco has a podcast studio where you can rent time. I know Sacramento just came up with one, but there's none in my area. So, you know, why not try and, you know, figure out a way to build a studio and then rent the time out, you know, to people. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways that you can go about trying to figure it out, but just learning it is the key part, because there's a lot of legs to this. It's not just what you see. It's just not us sitting here talking on the microphone and, you know, putting our message out there. The stuff that has to go on behind the scenes to build an audience from scratch, there's a lot to it. And I think that's the reason why people pod fade after 7 episodes, because they realize that, oh, this is work. This, you know what I mean? This is work. This isn't fun. I mean, there's more work that goes than fun that happens, you know?
And it can be fun if you can look at it the long term and realize you have the potential to do things. You're not the smartest one in the room. You don't have to be humble and say, oh, you know, I'm not the smart guy in the room. Well, that's the point on having guests come on that are smarter than you. I don't ever want to be in a room where, you know, David's the smartest guy in the room. Well, I'm in the wrong freaking room.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? There's so much potential here.
Well, the podcast, you leverage the podcast to get your foot in the door of other places that you're interested in. And that's what I've done everything. So, I mean, I guess in a way I've turned my manipulation around and used it in the right way. You know, so, well, and 2, plus I'm cheap. I don't want to spend a lot of money on stuff, right? Especially like coaching and mentorship and all that other stuff. So my workaround for that was, well, why don't I just offer to have them on my show, and then I ask the questions that I'm interested in, and you get some exposure and I get my questions answered. Yeah, I'm kind of using you, but you're using me too. So it's a mutual relationship of using each other.
Exactly. Yeah, I like what you said there about using a skill that you had and used it for what you could call evil. It's the same thing that Jordan Peterson gets into on how he was studying how those guys in Nazi Germany became and were able to do the things that they did. They just used a skill that they had, and then they were pressured into doing things. And like Ryan and I both in sales, yeah, we could manipulate somebody into taking a deal that's no good, or you know, the same thing that happened in 2008. These guys just all get into a big conglomerate of manipulation and fraud, and they all, you know, get a part of it. It's just, yeah, I like how you said that.
Dude, I love Jordan Peterson, man. That guy is so interesting to watch. Have you watched him at one of his when he's his speaking engagements, and how he
Hours of him.
oh man, how he's just like, you see him working through it, working through the problem in his head as he's walking, and it's like he's thinking out loud but taking you along with his process, man. Exactly. It's amazing to watch that guy, man. I love him.
Exactly. And that's again with podcasting. We're not here sitting scripted. We're thinking out in ourselves a story, and we're trying to tell it. And each time we tell the story, it's going to change a little bit. But I know exactly what you mean about Peterson, and that's what he says in some of his talks when he was there selling that book, 12 Rules for Life. Is how he would go out with a question that he wanted to ask, and he would go out and try to solve the problem in his own head. Super interesting guy. Just came out with a book yesterday. I'm trying to get it.
I saw him on something because a lot of the times when my YouTube will end something, it'll flip up, I think, what the last thing I was watching before that. Mm-hmm. And there was one with him being interviewed, I think, by somebody else. And he was literally crying on there because when you think about something, and I was like, that's. So there's another thing that I'm getting involved with as I've gone through this little, journey. I just did an episode yesterday with a female who found me through listening to my show and resonated with my abusive behavior because she was a woman who was abusive too. And so we started a series where we both talk about being abusive people from the masculine toxic masculinity side and the toxic femininity side, and having those conversations publicly, and talking about the hard things that come along with that. And so I think that's going to be a really helpful series for people out there, that are struggling with that, because there's a lot of men that do that. We have this idea of, what it is to be a man, and, maybe we didn't learn the right ways, or, we watched our fathers, be somewhat abusive to our mothers, and learned that, that gets stuck into that subconscious way of reacting to things. Right. And so trying to get through that and learning a better way is definitely, I think, needed. In our day and age, especially, with some of the things that are happening, and, people being stuck and forced to be at home with each other and maybe not like each other that much, and how do you navigate through that? And then there's another one that's coming out with the same thing, man. I hooked up with this other female who was a victim of an abusive person. And we're going to do a series or an episode where we role play with each other. And, like, what would I want to say to the people that I've been abusive to? And, what would you want to say to the victim or to the person that did that to you? And kind of just see where it goes. It's just all kinds of different ways to get yourself out there and get people to see who you are, and gaining, just like you saw me in that one episode of the Ripple Effect podcast, and something I said resonated with you, and then hopefully, through her audience and through listening to what I'm saying, there'll be some other people that resonate with me and start building a following that way of just being transparent and honest, man. Stop hiding from yourself,
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know as far as Jordan Peterson goes, you probably relate to him quite a bit, because that dude has a lot of he's struggled. He's had a lot of personal battles too, with a lot of things, and that's when he basically kind of went low key there for a while. For the last, it was like 4 months roughly. Last 4 months, he was pretty low key. Just recently.
Yeah, he had some health things going on too, I think, and so that was a part of it as well. But I mean, he's been being attacked for a long time, and, for me, I for no reason. I mean, when you listen to the guy, he's not saying anything that's harsh or maybe the trans stuff with the pronouns that he was getting attacked for over at Evergreen College. I think that's where he was at, or one of the university that he teaches at. But I mean, I have a trans sibling, so I mean, I've dealt with that, and I had a hard time with it. I'm not going to lie. I still, to a certain degree, don't understand it. I just recently had a trans person on my show that did have the whole gender reassignment surgery and everything. And that was another, like, I was interested in giving my perspective of it, because I feel family members, it's different for a family member, because you're the one, like, that person that you used to know is no longer here. Yeah, you are, but you're not. In my case, it was my brother that turned into my sister, and it was like, I used to do a lot of stuff with him. We used to hang out, play ball, play basketball, do, stuff that you would do with your brother. So in my case, I felt like, this person died, and I was never given a chance to grieve about it. I was just told to suck it up. This is who I am now, and accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, well, but there's more. There's more to that. It's not just, it's like, I'm sad that like, I don't have this person in my life anymore. And how come you don't understand that? How come it, it just doesn't work that way. And so I think that there's, the healthy conversation that can come from that as well. I mean, there's certain things, obviously, I don't agree with, like, the sports stuff and everything. But I mean, she gave a pretty good explanation on it. I'm not sure if I bought it 100%, because I still think that, if you're not on the puberty blockers from being a kid, and I don't agree with that whole thing either, I think it shouldn't even be allowed.
Yeah, how do they make a decision at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think you should, if you're going to do that, then you should wait until you're an adult and can make sure that that's what you want to do, because kids say the damnedest things. Having one myself. But it's, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't know anything about, the pituitary system and any of that stuff. I mean, all I have is opinions, and, I'm not educated in that way whatsoever. So, but I mean, I feel like I can speak on it a little bit because I have a family member. So, I mean, that gives me the license to enter the conversation, because otherwise most of them will shut you out of the conversation and tell you to get to buzz on, that you don't deserve to even have an opinion on it, because how do you know?
Yeah. It's a very good point.
Another one we were just talking in the last one. I think the question was, what motivates you? And I said something going down the line where I don't want my kids in a public school where they're being taught in kindergarten this kind of stuff, when this kind of stuff should be talked about at home. And now they want to get rid of the rights of parents, and if the kids want to get this stuff prescribed to them at school, that they can do that. I mean, where are we heading if you can? The parents don't have to be told that your child's getting the vaccination at schools where it started, and now they want to take it into, now they want to get these hormone drugs from their school. You used to go down there with a headache and they would barely give you Tylenol. Now they want to give you these hormonal drugs as a kid, and then you don't tell your parent. I mean, there's some weird stuff going on in your state, Sean.
Yeah, I know. They're definitely trying to remove. It's almost like they're trying to separate you from your children via the school. And yeah, I do have a problem with that. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and so what's going to have to happen, and honestly, this should have been happening the whole time. We've given the schools way too much authority over our kids to begin with. Right. and teaching them, and they've turned into babysitters and monitors versus educators. And so we need to, as parents, step up and start taking back some of that power and educating our kids ourselves. And that was another reason too that the pandemic helped me with, is that, I was willing to sacrifice, because being a business agent is a time consuming job. I mean, you're not going to, if I would have gone into that route, I wouldn't have been around a whole lot. And, being in the trades itself, doing, being the manual part of that, I'm not going to be around a whole lot either. So the pandemic gave me more time with my daughter, because I co-parent, and I was able to spend more days with her. And I started realizing that, whoa, man, I was going to sacrifice this. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to sacrifice. That's way too important of a thing, right? It's an important responsibility that shoveling off to somebody else to deal with is part of what the problem is. And so there's this one meme that I used to see all the time, man. It was really impactful to me, and it was it was a dad and his daughter sitting at the edge of a dock, fishing. And the meme was, instead of giving your kids the life you wish you had, teach them the things you wish you knew instead.
Mm.
And that's super applicable, because I mean, just think about like where we are, and trying to, or where you've been, and trying to teach your kid to navigate the pitfalls that you went through yourself, and trying to make them understand that, hey, look, compound interest is an important thing, and it's important to be on the receiving end of compound interest, not the other end, which we all find ourselves in.
Yep.
Which are, paying somebody else and giving somebody else the benefits of the compound interest, financial stuff that we were never taught, in school, and for a reason. They don't want us to be smart with money. They need us to be dumb consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's really important to take that role on as yourself. And, if it gets to a point where it's getting crazy, have a plan in place that you can pivot into something that's going to allow you to pull your kids out of that and start schooling them at home. Whether it's the vaccination that you don't want them to have, because that's where they get us as well, right? Your kids can't go to school unless they're vaccinated. All right. Well, that's kind of BS. So if you don't want that, then you're going to have to figure out something to be able to do that will allow you to homeschool your children.
I just saw a thing today actually on Instagram where we're saying, I believe it actually might have been, I know Texas, they just pulled the mask mandate back, but I can't remember which state it was, but they were saying that they're going to allow large gatherings and large groups again. So concerts, all concerts, sporting events, everything like that. But you have to, but you're going to have to show that you were vaccinated. I mean, what is that about?
Well, it's that thing that it's that involuntary coercion, right? Or not involuntary, but it's indirect coercion. They do it in jail all the time. I mean, from the time you get arrested till the time you plead out, it's an indirect coercion to get you to take a plea. From starving your ass when you get there, to jacking the price up to the store for ramen noodles, charging you $1 a pack. If you don't got money, it's a uncomfortable stay there. And it's all designed to get you to plead out and get you into that system, keep the conviction rate up, which keeps that government money coming in, and funding that. A lot of the times these commissary. So when I was in Clark County Detention Center, the commissary was owned by the judges. How is that not a conflict of interest?
Yeah.
We need our bottom line is, we need to beef up the profits. All right, we'll start sentencing people to longer sentences. That's how they make more money.
So messed up. I think what the most famous one is with these judges is the Cash for Kids.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You watch that documentary there, Sean? Brian?
No, I haven't seen it. What is it? What's it called? Cash for Kids?
Kids.
I actually just listened to a really good episode, really good podcast with the people there. They own and operate the Innocent Group.
Mm-hmm.
And
the Innocent Project, yeah.
I'm sorry, the Innocent Project. Those guys got to that, man. I have a lot of respect for them. The things, but yeah, where these kids just come in and they're just a funnel to the system.
Mm-hmm.
you know, a lot of these times, a lot of them might have some, you know, whether it's mental issues or, you know, not taking responsibility and maturity, where the judges might tell them, hey, you know, what are you doing right now? And they might respond, but kind of in like a little bit of an arrogant way. And the judges are like, just like, okay, fine. I was going to give it $1,500 bail. Now it's going to be $3,000 bail. And they just, because they know these kids are not going to get it, and they're going to be right back in the same position, and they're just going to funnel in the system and then just get caught up. I've listened to that. It was a really actually mind open, like really, really opened my mind to a lot of the things that go on behind the scenes. It's just terrible, because I know I easily, very, very well could have been in that exact same position. And it resonated with me a lot.
Yeah, I had the opportunity of interviewing. I haven't gotten these out. I got one of them out. It's Melissa Veach, that episode where she got 33 years on a drug conspiracy charge, where like this chick was poor. You wouldn't even give her $50 to hold, let alone, you know, the 50 kilos of methamphetamine that you charged her with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I talked to 10 other people that are currently incarcerated in the federal system and with similar charges. And a lot of this had to do with somebody saying, you know, they got caught up in this conspiracy, but then the people that told on her or told on them were being incentivized by a reduction in sentence to do that. So, I mean, they could lie and say whatever they wanted, you know? And so some of them were getting importation charges where it's like, they've never even been to Mexico. But because this person said that, oh, you said that the drugs came from Mexico, now they slapped an importation charge, which enhanced that crime, you know, exponentially. And they said that they saw you with a gun, so now you get a gun charge. Well, nothing was ever like, dude, there's no investigation that happens. There's no evidence. There's no anything. It's just they get their sentences increased by what somebody said. And, you know, and a lot of it on the back end of it, and I started thinking about it, the justice system is running on the same model as the financial system, what they show you in the con. Because so if you really go back and you start looking at the correlation between the 94 crime bill, the introduction of crack cocaine to the inner cities, and the privatization of prisons, they all correlate and coincide with each other. So you needed the crack epidemic to fuel the breaking down of the nuclear family and pulling the men out of the homes. All right. You needed the so I think the first part is they wanted to privatize prisons and started making profit off of them. So they came up with a reason to get the crack epidemic and get a bunch of people in prison. And then the 94 crime bill is what kind of like sealed the deal on that and doubled the mandatory minimums. So they all play a part in helping each other to get to the final goal, which is getting these people into prison for long periods of time and into the prison industrial complex, which is like, if for the Bureau of Prisons, it's called Unicor, but I talked to a lady that worked as an accountant in a Unicor, and she said that particular facility profited like 500 million that year.
Wow.
So are you telling me that you have a business within the prison that can probably pay for itself and then still be profitable, where we're not having to pay $40,000 a year per person to house these people? Sounds like a no-brainer to me, right? Nope. So getting them in there for long periods of time ensures that they have an ever-flowing loop of labor.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's one thing after another with breaking the family down.
Yeah. I mean, and it's all like, so another good person to listen to or a book to read is, and I haven't, but I know what he's talking about. And it's, The Octopus of Global Control by Charlie Robinson. And he does the Macroaggression podcast. But I mean, that's it, dude. It's the media is a leg. The financial system is a leg. The prison industrial complex is a leg. The pharmaceutical complex is a leg. You've got all of these, and they all have tentacles, and they're wrapped around the global community and choking the shit out of everybody.
So saying what you said, a half hour ago is another thing that Ryan and I hit on occasionally. Is Ryan was saying just in last week how what you basically said, and in your 40s you kind of get away from following politics and religion and spirituality, and well, maybe not, I'm mixing too many things together, but the conspiracy side of things, I guess. How are you still? How did you pull that back in? That you still keep up with the current topics and things that are going on?
Well,
that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know if I may have misstated what I was talking about. I said, we're usually too busy to understand and figure out all of this stuff until we get into our 40s and we start seeing the craziness, right? We start saying, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Oh, wow, how is that? Or you have kids and now you're starting to think about somebody else other than yourself. And, you're thinking about their future and what that's going to look like. And when you start stepping back and seeing all of the craziness and everything that's going on, it really makes you stop and think. But like I said, a lot of the times that you've already been plugged into this matrix and you're working to pay off the debt, and they get you into the hamster wheel and you can't get off of it. Cause if you get off of it, is the wife going to be happy with, losing the lifestyle that you guys have become accustomed to? And probably not. You should probably divorce your ass. So you've got those things, there's all kinds of things that are wrapped up into it. So, for me, I just, I listened to everything. I watched, Event 201. I watched the Event 21 with David Icke. I've watched all of these things, and I think because I've been to prison and I've seen the other side of it. Like when I was first fighting my case, I got introduced to the conspiracy law, and I would listen to the guys and I would have conversations with them about why they were there. And some of them, like there was this one guy. He'd stopped selling drugs altogether, went on with his life, and 5 years had passed since he did it. He's doing great. He's excelling, and put that part of his life behind him. And somebody that he used to deal with got in trouble and just threw his name in the hat. And he thought that he was going to be able to beat the case because there was no evidence, right? Well, hey, how's this guy going to just, say that I did something and you're going to give me 15 years? That's crazy, right? You would think. And so he thought that he could beat the case. They offered him 10 years and he said, nope, I'm going to trial. He went to trial. He lost. He ended up doing 25. And so that was my first kind of inkling of like, whoa, dude, shit's kind of weird, man. And then through talking to Fritz, and then obviously when I got out, I got involved in, I watched Loose Change. You guys familiar with that? Oh, yeah. Jason Burmis. And I didn't even realize that Jason Burmis was who he was until I got involved in watching the Union of the Unwanted. And I was like, oh, that's the dude that had something to do with it. But yeah, I mean, it's just all these things that, I mean, even to, so let's drop back to the vaccine a little bit. There's remember the frontline doctors? Simone Gold was one of the front head pieces for it.
Yeah.
And I was watching something that she was doing, and she was explaining it, and I didn't realize she's a clinical physician, and she's also a lawyer. So that's a lot of school, right? That's a lot of dedication. That's a lot of time. Like,
yeah, we have a special program about that, being a doctor, lawyer. I was just the following day, I had my good friend of mine that's going to be a doctor. We were just talking that there is a actual, it's a special curriculum for doctor lawyer to be a doctor. Okay. So to elaborate on that, it's not like you're taking two separate. They kind of merge them both together as one.
Okay. But it's still that's a commitment, mm-hmm. Right?
For sure. Absolutely.
Why would you risk everything that you went to school for, everything that you worked your ass off to get to to just throw it all away and go against the narrative if the narrative wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why would people do that? Why would Del Bigtree risk his following to go out against the grain? And you know, what for I don't know. I mean, that path is almost like thinking about why would somebody want to be transgender knowing what the path is for that, you know, if that wasn't really your truth, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so I've look at it the same way. And so, you know, why would these people be lying? And why would, you know, why on something that's biological, that everybody should be on the same page about in the medical community, why is it split down the middle? It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that doesn't make sense, you have to question. You know, we know that you know, if you just look at what happened, you know, with the Iran Contra thing and how the CIA was the one that was responsible for flooding the streets with crack cocaine. Why would our own government do that? So if they're capable of doing that, then they're capable of doing anything. We are dispensable.
Exactly.
You know, so you have to question everything. You can't just take things at face value anymore.
Fact. Exactly. I like the Del Bigtree drop there too. That's another one for people to look up. What is he running? The High Wire, right?
Yeah, the High Wire.
That's a really good one.
And we haven't even got into the cancel culture and the you know the what mainstream media and you know the censorship stuff that's happening. Like I've followed Ryan Dawson. I don't know if you're aware of who he is, and he talks a lot about stuff. He has the anti-neocon report, and he just disappeared off of YouTube. I mean, just think about our past and you know in our history. You know, when they start burning books and censoring, it means that's the last grasp at control because they're starting to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they're doing right now. And, you know, it was you know, I'm not a Trump fan. I think he's funny as hell. You know, some of the things that he says, you know, I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's pretty funny, man. You know, like, okay, I wish I could say that. But it's you know why people resonated with him is because he was, you know, I think he's still a part of the game, you know, but I just don't think that they like him. So like he's the black sheep of the billionaire club, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe there's more to it than that. But I mean, he did do a lot of good things for our country, and he was, you know, especially for my population, the formerly incarcerated and people that were in prison. The First Step Act really helped a lot of guys get out that were doing hard time for stupid stuff, you know. And so he was making some changes. And the big thing that you could see that I think that he did that really pissed him off was he didn't start any wars. He actually, you know, there was like, I guess he was the first one since Carter that didn't start any more wars. And if you watch the 9/11, everything's a rich man trick, it explains that whole mechanism by which they use war to profit. And, you know, what happened as soon as Biden got in there, he started dropping bombs on Syria.
Yep. Not even 60 days in.
You know, so we're going to end up with a war against Iran, you know, and that's pretty much what this is all kind of about. You know, another reason why I think they killed Soleimani was he was having success against Al Qaeda, which Al Qaeda is our proxy army that we use and we funded. We built them, you know.
All those photos of who's the daughter that's coming out now? John McCain, all those photos of him standing there with all the generals of ISIS, and then they end up with these Toyota trucks during the Obama administration. Where did they get all these Toyota Tacomas and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Operation Fast and Furious and all those other operations where they were funding them, giving them guns, and then they got all these anti-aircraft machine guns on the back of these trucks. We were funding them. I'm talking to the United States, the criminal elements of our government and the military-industrial complex, and it just seems like everybody wants to tune out. And you know, we have all these freedoms where we can just escape to our phones, and play video games. I play them. I'm not saying they're a bad thing, but it just, you can't completely block all this stuff out and expect that you're going to keep living the life that you're going to live. It's just, they're slowly take away your right, take away your right. It used to be, move out to the country and, live on a 15-acre farm or whatever. Well, you can only run for so long. You just put a microphone in front of in front of you and speak on what you know, and surround yourself with people that think the way that you think. And I can't stand when I hear people say that there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, there's people that have a closed-minded thought process on that. When people say that, I mean, you just got to kind of take that with a grain of salt, because there's going to be a lot of people that say a lot of things that just don't make any sense. I mean, and that's like almost like a mental block for those type of people. It's not at a certain point, you just got to take some things with a grain of salt and just say, okay, if that's your thought process on it and that's your opinion, then that's fine to have, but there's a lot more that you can do. I want to hit real quick about the bombing. This was the first time there's two things. The first one is about I know a friend of mine that became a Navy SEAL, or associate of mine that became a Navy SEAL. He was saying when he was overseas, it's crazy. You'll see, like, they'll go into bunkers, enemy bunkers and things of that nature, and the different, like, the metal that's in there, the guns, there's bullets, the things of that nature actually are said like made in the USA. He's like, it's fucking crazy. The people we're fighting, we're also fucking funding them too. But today was crazy. It was one of the very first times that I actually like, things kind of just hit with me. I was out in an appointment looking at a property, and a bomber came over. Big in Pittsburgh here, we recently been having a lot of the bombers, not like the not a stealth bomber, but just like the bigger ones that just they carry a lot. And I looked up at it, and it was the very first time in my life that I ever was looked up, and I was like, could you imagine just if that thing just started dropping bombs on you? Because with all the Syria talk that's just recently come up, and I don't know if it was like for me, things resonate. I was like, man, this is like, it's crazy seeing, like seeing all of this. It's like we're starting to go back into war again. It's just like, you kind of forget about it. Over the last 4 years, we've kind of been grateful about it. It's kind of not been talked about. Yeah, we did a couple things here, taking out a terrorist, but now it's like shit. It's like almost like we're gearing back up for something more serious. And it was just the first time it resonated with me, and it just kind of grounded me. I was like, oh man.
No, you're right. You're right. My girlfriend's son is in the Navy, and he's on an aircraft carrier. And he said up until Biden took office, it's been like really quiet, not a whole lot going on. And he said since Biden jumped into office, they've been working nonstop, like 14-hour days, like super busy and all, and on the base and everything else. They're getting ready. They're getting ready. It's going to happen. Something's going to happen. And if it's not going to happen there, it's going to happen with a false flag. A false flag is due to push that narrative and get everybody frightened again into saying, okay, go ahead, do it. We want to be safe.
Yep.
Exactly.
Patterns, man. Patterns. They always come back around and repeat themselves. At the game, man, I'm telling you, watch that. Everything's a rich man's trick, dude. I'm going to tell you, it will tell you everything about everything that we've just been talking about, and how they use certain things to push other stuff.
Where can you find it at for people listening?
You can get it on, actually, you know what? I'll put it in the chat here, in the private chat. That way you can, so guys, talk about that something, and I'll find it real quick. YouTube. Yeah, Loose Change is a good one.
What was the name of it there, Sean?
Everything's a rich man's game.
Yeah, from 9/11 to from JFK to 9/11, everything's a rich man's trick. The director is Francis Richards Connolly.
I like how this software works way better than these other ones.
Oh yeah, dude. StreamYard has definitely been my go-to because it allows you to have, like, if you use it, like I have the paid version, so I stream it to 3 different locations, and I allow like I'll pump up the episode first and the guest, and then I'll have viewers and audience members chime in with questions and comments, and I'll do it live and show them as they make them. I got David Weiss coming on. You know who he is, right?
Tell me.
The flat Earth guy.
Oh, yeah.
I never heard.
Yeah. He's been making the rounds for flat Earth for a while, and he's coming on here pretty soon.
Nice.
I would be very interested to hear about that. Elon's very outspoken about that, so I would be interested to hear what his thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I mean, I used to I don't know what I believe, until I can go up there and look myself. I'm not going to take anybody's word for it.
Right.
I mean, I want it to be around Earth because I think the things that I've seen, from the space station, that footage, and I think it's really cool. But I just, with knowing everything that we know and how we're being lied to constantly, I don't know if I can believe that. All right, so I got it right here. I'll copy the deal. All right, it didn't take me as long as I thought. Nope, not that one. Now, where did you go? There you are.
For the ones that want to watch that, the con, that one's on Vimeo. That's where I just found it at too.
I put that. Yeah, the con. So if you go to thecon.tv, that'll give you the first episode you can watch for free.
Oh, okay.
And then you can buy it straight from there. But yeah, that's definitely a really good one. It really gives you all of everywhere that the Big Short missed. It fills in the blanks. So from the whistleblowers to the mechanisms by which it was being done through the appraisal process to the lending, everything, it really breaks it down. And then they have another series that's like, if you go to he started another series called the Pecora Files, and as you get into the further into the the 3rd, 4th, and 5th episode, they start talking about a guy called Pecora who really was instrumental in regulating after the what was the big one? The Great Depression. You remember that era when all of that started happening, and the New Deal that FDR brought in to kind of protect us from the financial institutions, which they've dismantled since then, which is why we are where we are today, because all those regulations that got put into place and everything else, they've dismantled all 3 of them. The last one was the Glass-Steagall Act, and they've taken that out of there as well. So there's actually no oversight or anything, and that's why they're able to do the billions and trillions of dollars and bailouts, which is really socialism for the wealthy, for the billionaires. They socialize the losses and privatize the gains.
Right.
Well,
Sean, where can people find you at?
The easiest place to find me is Linktree. My Linktree is where you can find all the places that I'm at, all the ways you can connect to the show, from merchandise to Patreon. All my social media links social media links for the show are available there, and that is linktr.ee/nowhere to go but up. Or you can just look me up, Nowhere to Go But Up podcast on Google, and I'm the first thing that pops up. So, yeah, if you like what you hear and you want to hear some authentic and real conversations with people, and also me amplifying people that are calling out corruptions and, you know, stuff like that, feel free to head over and check me out.
Awesome. It's crazy right now. There's so many topics to be talked about, and it's hard to just even dive into so many of them.
Yeah, like I started out as a bottoms and life struggles podcast, and then it's sort of morphed into what it is now, which is a lot of my personality, honestly, and taking on that, and then, you know, calling out corruptions, and, you know, being a voice for the formerly incarcerated and the currently incarcerated, you know, and prison reform, criminal justice reform. I'm not an opponent for defunding the police. I think that's the stupidest idea you could ever have, as somebody that's been on the other side of that fence.
I mean, that's got to be the most ridiculous thing ever. Anybody that even thought that that was a good idea is, excuse my language, but a fucking moron.
Yeah, I mean, they need more training, not less funding.
Absolutely. Take
you
them
know,
to pay for psychology classes. You know, have them actually be able to understand how humans react when there needs to be a heightened of awareness of aggression, or when those sensors start to tick off, that, okay, how can we handle that? How can we de-escalate something like that? You're not going to find that out by removing all money from them and just saying, oh, hey, I don't think we need you anymore.
Yeah, well, Jocko had a really good interview with Joe Rogan where they talked about, you know, for a mission to go into, you know, the SEAL teams, do they train for how many months prior to that, you know, 8-hour mission? And, you know, you're putting guys in positions, and a lot of guys that, you know, become police officers are scared people. You know, they aren't the ones that you would necessarily want to be put in a situation where, you know, I think a lot of the times when they shoot people, it's because they're scared and they just like do it on accident, instead of, you know, being able to, okay, you know what I mean? I couldn't imagine what that would be like. I mean, I would probably be scared too if I have somebody coming at me with something, and I'm not trained to know exactly how to handle that, because they get what, maybe how many hours do they get a month of actual training other than being a cop? Not a lot from the time they get out of the police academy.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I have a lot of people I know that are actually from a small town that are in police force.
Sean, you come from your whole father's side is all cops, right?
Yeah, they are. Even my grandmother, man, she was the first female police officer in Berkeley Police Department.
Nice.
So, I mean, I've got a line of police blood in my family, and so, but that also, I know the other side of it too. And, you know, I'm not going to say what I want to say right now, but, you know, there's a lot of prejudices. And, you know, maybe rightfully so, because you're dealing with, you know, that element constantly, you know. And I used to say this when I was in prison, is those guys are doing time too. Okay. They just get to go home every day, but all of the stuff that they have to be dealt with, like from being, you know, having guys throwing feces on you to, you know, all the other stuff that goes along with it. I mean, that's gotta affect you, you know? And so, you know, it's not always, yeah, there are bad apples in every bunch, but I mean, you got to think about it from the other side as well. You know, they just get to go home. And a lot of the times when they go home, they end up, you know, a lot of them are, alcoholics. A lot of them are abusive people as well, because when they go home, they take out their day on the people that are closest to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's I don't know, man. Like I said, you start thinking about it, man, and there's just so many different facets of culture, life, society, that when you start to want to dissect it and peel back the layers, it just seems like an insurmountable task. But I mean, we got to start somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they always say focus, a lot of the times is pick one that really resonates with you, pick a certain topic and drill that one and focus on it. If you're in the mindset of, hey, I want to do something and make positive change, yes, you can indulge all this information, speak about it and talk about all of that, but not actually do something proactive. But if you wanted to go in and do something proactive towards it and actually make a difference and make a change, that's where you need to dive in on the one that resonates with you the most, because you're not going to be able to, it's going to be very hard to be in every single one, being in helping police reform, but then on the other side of that, helping, talking about vaccines. You just can't be in everything all at once.
Yep. Be a facilitator, not a regurgitator. Because we can all regurgitate, things that we've heard and, and talk about stuff, from people that have actually done the research, but you got to take it a step further than that and facilitate the change that you want to see, or be the change that you want to see.
Yeah. I really like the fact what you're doing right now, that hit with me a lot, because I feel like now it's almost like I feel like I have an obligation now that I need to go out and try and start helping people that were in similar situations that I am in, that I found myself in 10 or 11 years ago, or no, it was 10 years ago. Find myself that I was in back then, and how I can start helping people. So I really liked what you're doing there with what you're doing in the community, as far as what was the name of the nonprofit again?
The nonprofit itself is Nowhere to Go Inc. Nowhere to Go But Up Inc. And then underneath that is going to be the project itself, which is going to be the Nowhere to Go But Up project. And then the podcast will be attached to it as a marketing leg of the nonprofit. So, I mean, they're all going to be tied together. How it's going to look and all of that, like, I'm not smart enough. Well, not that I'm not smart enough. I'm just not educated in those areas. So my board of directors I'm putting together is, going to be people that are, that know how to do the things that I don't, and sort of building that out, and a lot of them are going to be people that I have in my network already. Like, and I have a tax person, a tax professional, a CPA that I'm going to bring on board. I've got a lawyer, a federal lawyer that I interviewed that I'm going to ask to be on board and sort of give it credibility that way, because you need somebody that's, fluent in the law and can, navigate that. So, I mean, I don't know if it's going to work, if they're going to say yes or not, but I mean, it's a lot. There's a plan there, and it's just about, getting together with the board of directors, putting that together, and then facilitating, building this program around my vision. And like, I'm sort of the captain, say, hey, this is the vision I have. This is where I want to go with it. And, I need you guys to kind of do the things that I can't or don't know how to do. And I'll learn as we're going along. So the next time, I'll know if I do it again or can help other people to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to circle back on you like that line there. We'll circle back on it. Love to circle back on that here in a couple of years and see where it takes. I would definitely like to do something as far as my, because at that 18 to 24-year-old, that's it. That's where I was at. That was my age group whenever I found myself in a load of trouble too. So that resonates with me. So
and if you ever want to come on the show, man, and talk about, what you went through and, kind of where you're at and, promote your show and all that, man, feel free to do that. Both of you guys.
Love to.
I'll have you on the show.
Cool beans.
Set it up.
Heck yeah. All right. Good stuff. Well, let's wrap this one up, guys.
Yeah, it's a long one.
It was a long one. We went in for
keep them long. If you see any of the other ones, we try to go 3 hours. We found out you can't go over 3 hours on that anchor that we're sending it out to. So our first one's part 1, and then too long part 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, some of these are good to, like, you can't do this with everybody. Like, there's a lot of guests that can't, and not that they can't, they're just not seasoned in being able to conversate for that long and pivot into all kinds of different topics and segue and know that. So I like talking. I like having interviews with other podcasters because we kind of all, first of all, we got good content. We have good, mics and the sound always ends up good. And, and it's also, we're used to talking and having conversations. So it really can make for interesting content.
For sure. Well, Sean, you always have an open invite to come back on ours.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good deal. And everybody that's listening, we did just get put up on YouTube. We're going to be moving all of our episodes in over there. We got the software here that we're recording it. So go over there. Let us know who your favorite guest is. Give Sean a shout out from Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. Make sure to go over to Apple and leave us a review over there as well. We're not asking for anything right now, but if you feel free to reach out, we'll eventually put our Bitcoin wallets out there and everything like that, because it does take a lot of money here to run this kind of operation. So anything helps for sure. Make sure to share if you like an episode to your friends, because it means a lot to us. We are working hard here. Like Sean said at the beginning of this podcast, yes, some of us get on here as a hobby, but it is a lot of work here to do what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the most important things too for listeners out there. It's free to do. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. But if you like the show, any show that you're watching or any creator that has that's on iTunes and you have an iPhone or an iTunes account, get on there and, rate the show and give a review, man, because a lot of the times in the beginning, that's our only communication with the listeners as to what we're doing and if we're making an impact, if we're doing good, that's kind of the needle mark there that I used in the beginning. And it's the easiest thing to do, yet I found it's the hardest thing to get people to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's when we got to just keep drilling it, hit that like button and share it.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. Well, hey, thanks for everybody that's listening, that comes in and listens to our show. We really appreciate it. Sean, again, appreciate you, man.
Great stuff. Thank you guys, man. I appreciate the invite and the conversation, and we're in each other's network now, so let's use it.
Absolutely. Appreciate the time, Sean, and enjoy that weather out there in the Bay Area, man.
It is nice.
All right, Keystone Gravitas, we're checking out here. Everybody enjoy your evenings.
Peace out. Where's your pup at, Rhino? I know you had her in the room too.
What's that?
I said, where's your pup? I heard her in your room.
Oh man, I was trying to keep her quiet.
I heard you. I could see you keep muting the mic.
I was muting the mic because I wasn't sure. There was some times where she was having a toy over there, so I would just mute the mic because I could see her in the corner. I didn't want to keep her not in the room. We go and scratch.
Yeah, mine's right here. My little shadow there, big shadow. But yeah, he's dude, man. I love dogs.
Yeah, she kept coming up, and I would be sitting here like this, and she would put her snout up here, and I would be like trying to hit her away. Trying to navigate it. It's funny. She's a good girl. What kind of dog you have?
I have a charcoal lab.
Okay, I have a German Shepherd.
Okay, that was my first dog, actually, is a German Shepherd. My dad had a police dog, and that little sucker was mean. It wasn't mean to me, but he was mean to everybody that tried to come around me. That's for sure. He bit my aunt in the ass a couple times.
Oh, shit. Damn.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Feel free to reach out anytime you need a guest, and I'll do the same thing. I'll shoot you. Actually, if you go to my Linktree, if you guys want to be a guest, go down and hit the booking tab, and you can just follow that right from there. You don't even need me to send you anything.
Yeah, for sure. I'd be more than willing to come on and tell people about my story.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right,
man. Checking out. Take care.